Hello, everybody. Thank you
Hi.
very much for joining us today. We're so excited for you all to be here. And I personally am just so excited to have the chance to talk to Therese, quiz her about her writing journey. And I know that so many of you are going to be so excited to hear all her top tips. And also just a really brilliant example of what it's like to go from aspiring author to Mills Boon author extraordinaire. So yeah, we are so thankful that you're all joining us today. Thank you so much again for joining us. I am Hannah Rossiter, an editor at Mills Boon, and this is the lovely Therese Beharrie, who is a Mills Boon True Love author. We're so excited, as I said, to be joining you today on Facebook Live to talk about both the Love to Write competition and Therese's journey to becoming a Mills Boon author. So I would love to start today's Facebook Live by introducing you to the wonderful Therese. So Therese is the writer of several acclaimed novels. She takes pride in writing diverse characters and settings, and her books are often recommended for their heart and banter, and I can definitely second that. I think you'd be hard pushed to read a Therese Beharrie book that you don't take completely to your heart, and I have so many favourites, it's hard to pick.
Thank you. That's so sweet.
That's my pleasure. He was like, you should see my shelf in there. Maybe I'll take a sneak picture for everyone later, but my shelf is covered with Therese Beharries. So it's just.
I don't know about everyone else, but I would love it.
He was like, I'll be sure to do it behind the scenes a bit later today. She lives in Cape Town with her husband, her inspiration for every hero, and her two adorable baby boys. And I can definitely testify they're very, very adorable, the sweetest children. Therese's latest Mills Boon True Love title, Awakened by the CEO's Kiss, tells the story of Brooke and Tyler and their reunion romance. Emotional and swoon-worthy in equal measure, Awakened by the CEO's Kiss is a must-read. So if you love the sound of Brooke and Tyler's story, I've read it and can definitely recommend it, then it's available for purchase on the Mills Boon website or any of your favourite online retailers now, so don't be afraid to head on over and give it a read. Now, before we dive into the very exciting bit, which is the Q&A, and we get to grill Therese about all things Mills Boon and her writing, I'm delighted to talk a bit about the Love to Write competition. So at Mills Boon, we are so excited about the Love to Write competition in partnership with Love Island winner Amber Rosegill, and to find new voices from underrepresented ethnic backgrounds for Mills Boon. The winner will receive a one-book contract with Mills Boon worth £2,000 and a grant of £1,500 to support their writing. They'll also receive mentorship with an experienced Mills Boon editor to help them develop their submission into a publishable romance novel. And the closing date for the Love to Write competition is Sunday, the 19th of September at 11:59 p.m. So get typing if you're tempted. And for more information on how to enter the Love to Write competition, you can head over to the Mills Boon website, where we've got a brilliant outline of everything from the T's and C's to a bit more in depth about our series. If you're new to Mills Boon and it's just a fabulous resource for all and everything Mills Boon. So I'd highly recommend, after watching this Facebook Live, to head on over to there. Now is the very exciting part. So Therese, let's get started. So welcome, Therese. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
I and the viewers would love to start by asking you a bit about your journey to being published. I know that we'll have lots of participants here who are thinking about entering the Love to Write competition, and they'd love to hear about your path from being an aspiring author to one of Mills Boon's most beloved authors.
Well, I actually started in a competition as well. I started with the So You Think You Can Write competition, which was a competition as well where you can send in your first chapter, and based on that, you'd get into the following rounds. So in 2014, I entered the So You Think You Can Write contest with my first chapter of the first book I'd ever written from start to finish. I polished that chapter so well. And so I sent it through, and I was so nervous, but really excited as well, because I'd done a lot of work. I sent it to all my friends, and I made sure that, it was really some of my best stuff. And then I got into the next round of the competition. Unfortunately, the rest of the book was horrible. So it was my first book. I literally just challenged myself to write a book from start to finish. And the entire time while I was writing it, I was telling myself, just make sure you get to 50,000 words. It doesn't matter what you put in there. So I had like all sorts of really dramatic, really terrible things in there. And obviously I didn't, win the competition or make it to the next round, but I got really great feedback based on that entry. And so I used that feedback to write my entry for the following year, which was a little bit better. Mm-hmm. And I got into the next round again. And while I didn't win that competition, the same editor who read my first entry read the second one. Hi, Flo, if you're watching. And she saw some potential in it. So she contacted me and asked me if I'd be willing to work with her, which was honestly my dream come true and one of the most invaluable experiences I've had as an author. And so we worked together for about 6 months, and then I got offered my first 2-book contract to write for Mills Boon, which was amazing.
He was like, oh, that is so wonderful. And I think that, watchers will find that it really helps to kind of learn that, every journey is different, and sometimes it'll happen straight away, but more often than not, and I would say most of the time, it is a really kind of, it's a learning process, and it's a journey, and it's all about kind of, taking those opportunities and learning as you go.
Absolutely.
And, I know that you said with that first one that you were like really excited about that kind of first chapter that you wrote, which is so brilliant. And I think that's what, at Mills Boon we're most passionate about, is just hearing how excited everyone is about their stories, because that's what makes them shine, and really seeing the passion in them. That whilst you were kind of writing that opening chapter, have you got any tips for kind of what were the kind of initial ideas that were swirling around your brain, and as you were kind of putting pen to paper or hands to keyboard, what were the first things that kind of pushed you to get going?
I think so. I've been a Mills Boon reader my entire life. From 12, which is way too young. And if my kids ever see this, please do not read Mills Boon at 12 years old. I mean, I probably will be slipping it to them, but I read it. I started quite young. And so I had a good idea of that tension and conflict that our readers love. Mm-hmm. So that was what I was trying to capture in that first chapter. And that's what I'd say, an aspiring author should do, is to try and make sure you have that tension and conflict visible to your reader as soon as possible. Mm-hmm. With an opening chapter, you want your love interests on the page as soon as possible, especially with the Mills Boon book, which, is quite condensed in terms of all that delicious romance that you're getting. And I'd say make sure that you have the tension there, make sure you have that chemistry there, which is, what keeps your reader reading. So I think those are probably very general tips, and more specific tips come when you see what trope are you using. So like Awakened by the CEO's Kiss, we have 2 characters who have history, and she doesn't remember this history. And so the very first thing that happens is he realizes, oh, okay, but this is this woman that I've seen before. Yeah. And she's not remembering me, but I work for her now, and so I can't mention it or I'm going to mess this up, and they are really high stakes. So I think that's another one that's like high stakes. So make sure that whatever trick you're using or whatever conflict you have is evident from the start, and just make it as delicious and dramatic as possible.
I think that is, a brilliant top tip. And I think, conflict is kind of so central, and it's what's going to keep us invested in the story. So really thinking about what's kind of going to be that like ultimate point of tension between your couple. And like you said, with like Brooke and Tyler's story, really thinking about a second chance romance is amazing for conflict, because there's so much that's happened in the past, and there's so much to unpick, and all those things of, but why didn't that happen in the past, and why is now the moment that things are going to change? And that can be kind of a really explosive way to start a story, because there's so much to go from there. And if anyone's looking for kind of more in-depth top tips on kind of how to nail that conflict, then I'd really recommend heading to the Write for Harlequin website. We've got loads of blog posts all about kind of conflict.
And I read all of those blog posts, because I think I don't know, I'm probably wrong, but I came to it when So You Think You Can Write, when it was still the So You Think You Can Write blog, which was a place where editors are coming, giving the information, which I think is the same in terms of content. Maybe the name is different now. But, I read every single blog post about first chapters, about external and internal conflict, and I learned so much. So I can't sort of emphasize enough how much that actually helps, and to do it specifically for Harlequin. That's what you're going to get on that resource today.
It's like, no, I always kind of joke that we should call Write for Harlequin, or what it once was. So you think you can write as a bit of like an encyclopedia for Mills and Boone, because if you search anything from characters to conflict to how to write a synopsis, we really have a resource for everything there. And
examples. So, and that's something that's very helpful as well. Yeah.
No, definitely. Like, I know even from an editor perspective, it's just so great to have those examples of like, this is a really great synopsis, and it's so nice to be able to see it written down on paper. So yeah, if anyone is looking for a few extra resources, I really highly recommend kind of heading over there and having a look around. And also, it's a really great way to kind of join the community. We also have a Facebook page where lots of budding writers have joined. So you can kind of chat to people, you can find beta writers. So it's a really great way to kind of immerse yourself in kind of the Harlequin, Mills and Boone world. But yeah, moving on to the next question. The Mills and Boone team, as I mentioned, are so excited about the Love to Write competition in partnership with Amber Rose Gill. Why are you excited about the Love to Write competition and the opportunity for the winner to receive both a one-book contract with Mills and Boone, which is so exciting, and also a grant of £1,500 to support their writing, as well as the opportunity to receive mentorship?
I think for me, the most exciting part about it is the mentorship. Because as I said earlier, I was working one-on-one with my editor. And in a way, I think that's not given to a lot of aspiring authors. So that opportunity to, write a chapter or a few chapters, send it to an editor, get feedback on it, being able to apply that feedback and going through it, specifically with something like Mills and Boone, where, there's a built-in market. And so you're writing for your readers who love our books and want to see, and want to experience what they know of our books. So I found it so invaluable as an author to start out having someone there, which is not something people often get. Usually you're struggling by yourself and then submitting and then getting maybe a feedback, maybe a revise and resubmit, or maybe just a rejection with no feedback. And so to be able to have that opportunity is really awesome. And I also really love that it's specifically targeted to people who are underrepresented in romance and who aren't necessarily going to have the opportunities to and the confidence to submit to something more general, or to confidently submit to a slush pile. Because I know that's how I felt initially, was worried about the characters that I was writing or the settings that I had, especially since I was not in one of the countries where you typically see romances set. So I was very afraid to, was entering that competition initially, and I kind of was very vague about it. But we're actually celebrating it. We want authors who, haven't seen themselves in romance to enter and to get support both financially and editorially. And I think that's just amazing. And I really hope you do enter and take advantage of this opportunity, because even if you don't win, there are very good chances, as you see in my case, that an editor will see your potential and try and help you to move further.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's, whilst the opportunity to win the competition is amazing, there's also other opportunities to receive mentorship in different ways, and also just to get in touch with editors and get our support through that. And, there's going to be so many stories through this competition that we're excited about. So yeah, it's not just about thinking about, what if I don't win, because there are so many different opportunities with this kind of competition, and we're here to kind of offer our support to as many aspiring authors as possible, because we're just so passionate about authors and readers seeing themselves in the stories that they write, and having stories for everyone. So yeah, I, like Therese said, I would say, don't hesitate to submit, because it is just such a wonderful kind of gateway into the Mills and Boone world. And I know you were talking about kind of how important the opportunity to receive mentorship is and the opportunity to work with Flo. Is there anything in particular that kind of really stood out to you when you first worked with Flo? And is there anything that you found most valuable? Was there like a specific thing where you were like, oh, this is the thing that really helped me?
Oh wow, it is a long time ago. And lots of things have happened in that time, but I do remember just feeling my confidence as an author grow. So I don't necessarily know the specific, or can't think of like the specific things, but I know that having Flo in my corner and having her, actually be invested in me. So I was, initially you kind of just think, oh, they're not going to care about me. They have a long list of authors, but I really felt cared about. I really felt sort of confident that she was going to care about what I was writing and that she would support me in that. And I think that was really important for me as an author. And I'm trying to think specifically. I think there were very kind of specific things about heroes and heroines and what to expect and what our readers expect from our characters. I think specifically with True Love, our heroines are relatable. And so it's your everyday woman, and then being completely swept into this amazing world of love and that rush and passion. And she really helped me capture that. And so I think that's what a lot of editors do. I mean, I've had editors after that, of course. Megan, my editor now, does that as well. And she's so supportive in, because I come up with really strange and wonderful ideas, and I'll send it to her and be like, so what do you think about this? And she's just always, very confidently saying, yeah, we can do that. Let's see how it goes. So I think that's really something in your experience in working with an editor and building a relationship with an editor, which I think is a very special relationship and a very reciprocal relationship in that way.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's just...
I hope it answers your question.
No, that's perfect. And I think that's something that, I think sometimes publishing, until you have the opportunity to work with editors and kind of get into the world, I think sometimes publishing can be a bit of a mystery sometimes, and we really want to kind of help to demystify that and really, just have a really open door into the publishing world and show that we're here to support you, and we're here to help you do what you're most passionate about and kind of bring amazing stories to life. And that's what it's all about. And so I think that's really, really valuable for the viewers to hear about. Thank you so much. So kind of moving on from that, and we've chatted a little bit about it, but what are your top tips when submitting to Mills and Boone? And this can be more specifically for True Love or more generally, but any top tips would be brilliant for the viewers.
I think I'd start with general, which is to read Mills and Boone books, and to read widely at first, so that you can figure out what tropes you like, what do you like about, say, certain authors writing, where you see your own voice fitting in. And so that's a mistake I made initially. I wasn't reading widely. I was just reading, whatever I could get my hands on, which in South Africa was not, necessarily something like, I'm trying to think. So the True Love line, has special edition, and which is in the US, and romance. So it's kind of a combination, and not realizing that initially. But as I read and started to figure out, okay, there are these books that have these kind of things in it, and these books that have these kind of things in it, and then figuring out, okay, my voice is more suited to that. And also what I want to write is more suited to that. So if you have something like a modern novel, a Mills and Boon modern, which is, very high fantasy and very dramatic and sort of wonderfully fantastical, whereas with True Love, it's a little bit more sort of down to earth in that sense. So I, had to figure out where I fit in, and I think that's a really good way to start, because Mills and Boon is so specific, and so not specific in but so special in the way it's, all the different lines are given to our readers. So I definitely say read our books and then go from there. And read our recent books as well. So read a variety of the authors in the line, and read recent stuff so you can see what authors are writing and how they are doing it. Because even as I've written, things have changed. People are writing. I know there are more, people are playing around with the different tenses and all of those things. And those things are things that, you need to figure out where you fit in. So, yeah.
No, I think that's kind of the best advice you can give, because the best way to get a sense of all our series is really to immerse yourself in the world of them, whether that be true love or medicals. And a really great resource is if you head to Try Harlequin. We actually have a free title from every series. That's a really great, accessible, free resource for everyone to kind of dip their toes, if they've never really read a Mills and Boon before, to kind of dip their toes into it and really get a sense of what makes a Mills and Boon true love story and Mills and Boon true love story. Wonderfully, our Mills and Boon Try Harlequin title is Therese's. You'll get to dip your toes into one of Therese's stories, but that's a fantastic place to start and really accessible.
And to read the guidelines.
Yeah.
And to make sure, absolutely. Exactly, and all of that's there, so.
He was like, no, if you head to the Mills and Boon website, we've got a really great kind of outline of our guidelines for the 4 series, which is competition is open to. So that's medical romance, true love, modern, and historical. So there's a real amazing range of series there, from contemporaries to historicals, and also from, slightly more cozier medicals to high-paced medicals. So really kind of the world of Mills and Boon is pretty much an oyster when you start digging. So yeah, as Therese said, guidelines are a really great place to get a bigger sense of things. But also, we're always on hand on the Mills and Boon website and on all our social media platforms to kind of answer any questions you have. So never be afraid. And Therese has really amazingly offered, after this chat, we're going to pop this on YouTube. So if you have any questions, Therese will be there afterwards having a quick look. So don't hesitate to ask any questions. We are always on hand. But yeah, that was brilliant to hear. So thank you so much, Therese. And kind of moving on, what do Mills and Boon fans expect from our story? So this might be something you want to speak to more specifically with true love, but also kind of wider as well.
I think we kind of touched on earlier when we said that they want their romance fix in a relatively quick and intense experience. So I think because our books are sort of shorter compared to other books, is books like they kind of give you reader what they are looking for and don't necessarily have the time for. So I would be sure to give your reader what you want, right? So please don't think that you're going to give them something new and fantastic that's never been done before, because your readers like what's been done before. That's why they're buying a Mills and Boon novel. So I think that's kind of make sure that you have the tension, the conflict, the chemistry, everything that we've been speaking about until now in your book, and try and get that in as soon as possible so that you grip your reader, and you can then just try and sustain that over the novel.
So I think that's kind of one of the most important things, is that making sure that we fall head over heels, not just with your main characters, but the story as a whole. And I think kind of the idea of that chemistry, the tension, the conflict, they're really the 3 key things that are really going to pull your story together, but also keep us engaged the whole way through. And it's all the things that are going to link every sort of chapter together and throughout the story, and really maintain it as a story that excites us and grabs our attention. So they're 3 really brilliant kind of things to kind of think about all the time as you're writing, and think about, have I got my eye on this? Is this still quite working? Does this feel tense enough? Does this feel high-paced enough? So I think,
and is it moving the story forward? You can have some beautiful scenes, and that's something that's currently in the book I'm writing, is I have great scenes that's not moving the plot forward. So you kind of have to think about that as well, and just make sure that everything is making sure your characters get to that level after. And that's, of course, the biggest thing that our Mills and Boon readers expect, is that level after.
Absolutely. He was like, I think it's, there's something, and it's why I love romance books. I'm sure it's why Therese loves them as well, but it's that guaranteed happily ever after, and knowing that, you're going to watch your main characters slowly but surely make their way to happily ever after. And that's what's so brilliant about romance books, among so many other things which I could talk for hours and hours about, but a happily ever after is what we love the most.
Absolutely. Please don't give me a book that doesn't have one.
No, me too. I'm not interested if it's not a happily ever after. So moving on, have you got any top tips for how an author can bring their main characters to life on page? So this might be something you want to talk about, kind of that first time where you try to bring main characters to life, but also kind of, you know, from book to book, more recently, kind of what those sort of starting blocks are for you to kind of take them from your imagination into a story.
I think kind of a general one is to make sure that your characters are real. So no matter, I think, you know, people can confuse the fact that they are dukes or kings or queens or, you know, whatever it is, doctors. Not necessarily things that you'd see in everyday life, but they are still real people. I mean, you of course see doctors in everyday life. I don't mean it like that, but I mean dukes. You're not really seeing very often. So I think to just remember that they are real, that they are human, and that they still struggle with those emotions that we see our friends and our families go through, that we go through ourselves. To remember that, and then to make sure that everything is kind of fun in that sense, that you can relate to it, but you're not necessarily experiencing it. So I love doing this. You know, I love putting my characters in these really dramatic situations, but and giving them real emotions and human responses to these things, but also, you know, knowing that I would never ever want to be in that experience myself. So, but what would I do if I was in that experience? What would I do if a billionaire offers to take me to Italy so that we can work together on this, whatever it is? I would be incredulous. I would be excited, and I'd be like, "Why do I have to find him handsome? This is an amazing, you know, kind of thing." And to think like that, and then to write it, and then more specifically, I think in terms of your dialogue, make sure your characters are speaking the way we speak. So that would be my biggest tip.
No, I think that's like the idea of like, what would I do in that situation is the most fantastic piece of advice, because that's what makes it real, and that's what it makes it feel like it's one of your friends, like you're reading a story about one of your friends or someone you know, because it makes them human and real because they're having the reactions that you would. So like for instance, you say, what would I do if like a billionaire whisks me away to a private island? It's all these questions, and you're like, well, and you
if only we had that experience.
If only someone was whisking me away to a private island right now, I wouldn't say no.
Sorry, I forgot my charger, so I'm like trying to covertly put it in somewhere. So I'm sorry about how weird this looks.
That's absolutely no problem. I think if viewers have learned anything from the past 2 years, is that.
And now, like, the plug is at the back there. I'm sorry, this is live, guys. So we see. Sorry.
Like, it gives us a chance to see your beautiful books in the background, so it's good.
I at least, tried and to take a,
Like,
okay, we can keep talking. I've got most of it sorted out now.
He was like, but I think lots of views.
And it was either this or like I would randomly disappear.
He was like, we'd much rather you didn't disappear, so that is perfect.
Okay, we are good. I'm so sorry for that, but
that is absolutely no problem. Normally it's me and my internet, and you just get half of my face sort of frozen in a corner, so that is no problem at all.
We are live. This is live.
This is live. Okay. This is real.
Okay.
Perfect. So moving on to sort of a few more kind of specific things, I'd love to hear about your favorite tropes. What are your favorite tropes? Is there any books or a book or more than one book that you've written which features your favorite trope? And are there any books in general that you're really excited about at the moment that feature your favorite tropes?
So I love a pregnancy story. I don't know why, having been pregnant, it is not a super romantic time in your life. But I love how it brings people together and really forces you to face your issues and to face your whatever is. It forces you to put yourself aside for a second and focus on something, and in the same breath it kind of makes you focus on yourself, because you have to deal with you have to deal with your issues before this child comes in. So I love that. That's one of my favorite books to read. And then to write, for me, is funnily enough not necessarily pregnancy, but second chance romances. I think I counted the other day, and I think about 50 to 60% of my books, maybe even more than that, have second chance of some kind. So like friends, or like in Awakened by the CEO's Kiss, like a brief meeting and a small, time spent together, and now it has such a huge impact. So I love second chance romances. I love the tension that comes with the history, and then trying to figure out how to untangle that history to make it work in the present. And as you said, why is it working now, and why didn't it work then? So to go through that. So that's my favorite.
I think we share very similar tastes because I love a second chance. I think with that, especially friends to lovers, is just, I think there's, it's, those questions of why is now the right time, but also there's just so much richness in there, the past and what's happened before now. It's just completely brilliant. I think we might have lost Therese just for a second, but I'm sure she'll come back. Who was like, oh, there we go, perfect.
Am I back? Did you lose me?
Oh, you're back. Perfect. Yeah, I can hear you now. Brilliant.
I have no idea what happened.
No, I was worried it was me then. I was like, oh no, what's happened to my internet is a bit
I could hear you, so I was like, okay.
Times. But yeah, like I was saying, it's just the richness of their like shared paths together, and just that can make for such a powerful romance. So I think if anyone's interested in knowing what had the way to my heart, a second chance romance is definitely the way to my heart. I just think
I'll send you one of the 50 million I've written.
I was like, please send one of my way. I will definitely accept them with open arms. But moving on to talk about tropes in a bit more detail, why do you think tropes are so important to a Mills and Boon story, and why do they make Mills and Boon what they are?
I think it's because it tells our reader what to expect. So we know that we'll be getting a one-night stand, there might be a secret baby or a working together relationship, or something is coming that's going to force these characters to deal with this one-night stand. With a second chance romance, we know, it's going to be that tension, that richness that we come to expect. And I think that's why we are so sort of proud of it in our titles, because it's like, we know what you want and we are giving it to you. So I think it's actually a way of honoring our reader and honoring what they love, and realizing what they love, and being like, we know you love this, we love giving it to you, so here you go.
Feels like, I think that is just like such a brilliant way to sum it up, and I couldn't say it better. But yeah, I think Mills and Boon is all about, we know what you love and we're going to give you what you love, and that's kind of really the magic of it, is really giving people what they want and giving them the stories that they're so excited to read. And there's something so brilliant about looking at a shelf and knowing you're like, oh, this is the story that I'm going to love because it features this trope. So for me, if I see a second chance romance, I'll take it and run away because I know that's the one I'm going to want to read. But I think there's something so brilliant and so comforting about that, and that's what makes Mills and Boon so special as a publisher, and our story so special, and also the stories that our authors write, and all our authors understand the importance of that, and that's just but I couldn't put it better than you put it so brilliantly. But so moving on away from tropes and a bit more into kind of the nitty-gritty of writing, how do you approach creating and writing conflict in your stories? I know that this will be a burning question for a lot of viewers, so we'd love to hear if you've got any top tips that you might be able to share.
I actually think for me, it starts with a trope, generally. So I'm trying to decide which trope I'm using. So I keep talking about Awakened by the CEO's Kiss, but it's because it's the most recent one that I can remember. And so for me, I started out with the amnesia trope and being like, okay, so let's start there. What kind of conflict would we have with this type of trope? And so I realized that, if we have two people who meet and share connection and one does not remember it, that's immediately conflict, right? It's because we shared this amazing thing and you don't remember it. And that hurts me, but also, how can I be hurt? It was, because in their case, it was a very short period of time that they met. So like, how can I be hurt if I didn't, if it wasn't a thing? So immediately I had that uncertainty and that kind of on top of whatever they are experiencing themselves, which, so in Tyler's case, the hero's case, he is already kind of doing his part for his family and he feels really responsible for them. And so he kind of feels guilty for having these feelings for Brooke that she doesn't even remember. So why did he, kind of even think that way? And so you have that turmoil going on. And then with Brooke, the amnesia kind of happened in a very traumatic thing for her. So she loses her husband, and because of how that happens, she experiences some memory loss. And so for her, it's like, I lost my partner, and going through the motions of that, what would that feel like? How would moving on feel like? And how would, kind of actually meeting someone that you're interested in and that you are falling in love with, how does that how does that influence you? And I got all of that starting with my trope. So then that's the internal conflict. And then with the external conflict, I kind of then try and figure out how can I layer this to make sure that it's going to be interesting to the reader and to complicate those internal conflicts. And the way I did it in this book was to make them work together and to make Tyler sort of stand in for his sister. So he's not doing it because of his job, but because of his sister's job, which is incredibly important to her. And so he doesn't want to mess that up. So he can't talk about their past, and Brooke doesn't remember their past, so she's not going to talk about it. And then to have this external conflict, which is forcing them in the situation, forcing them to feel their feelings individually, and all of that started from the trope. So to kind of unravel it and look at your characters and then try and create a situation that's going to be the most awkward and awful for your characters.
Summed that up so brilliant. I think that's a really great way to show that just one thing as simple as a trope can really be that domino effect that really kind of leads you into kind of a whole world of conflict and all the things that you've got to unravel throughout the story, and the little kind of like subplots and like minutiae and nuance of the conflict as well. So I think this is going to be something that the viewers are definitely going to go back to the YouTube video and keep watching again and again, because you've summed it up so brilliantly, and it's a really great way to kind of hear a real life example of how it kind of worked out and how this led you to this and this led you to this. So thank you so much for sharing that. That was brilliant. Thank you.
I'm so glad it helped. I really hope it does help someone.
No, absolutely.
It took a while for me to get to my process and to figure out how, and I know it works differently for different people. So all of this is just examples and kind of something that hopefully will just help you, maybe something else helps you, but all of it will eventually get you to your journey and to figuring out how you write and what your process is.
Yeah, I think that's a really kind of important thing to remember, that is like everyone's journey is going to be a bit different. Nothing is going to look the same. So really kind of just focusing on yourself and kind of what works for you. So you might try one thing and it's not quite right, but you might try another thing and that works really well. So a lot of it is trial and error, and trial and error is often the way you get the very best out of yourself in your writing. So don't be afraid to kind of decide that maybe this isn't quite working, but let's try this. And that can really be where you get your best stuff. So definitely feel free to kind of explore and try new things, because that is often the best way with writing. So that is fantastic to hear. Thank you so much. And this might be a tricky question to ask. It's quite a big question to ask, but what would you say is the best piece of writing advice that you've received?
I thought about this like really hard. I even asked my husband. I was like, what is the best writing advice I've ever received? But I honestly think is to make writing a habit. So before I actually did that, I was spending a lot of time thinking about writing. I would think about my ideas all the time. I would think about what I wanted to write and how I wanted to write and, what I do. But I never actually sat down and wrote. And until I did that, I spent most of my time dreaming, and that's great, but it's not going to be the thing that helps you send in your manuscript to, to an editor, to a publisher, to an agent, whatever your choice is, whatever your path is. And so I'd say that was something for me, but I kind of made it my own because people were saying, write every day, and that's just not necessarily feasible for people. So what I said is just write often, and write, and make sure you're writing what's possible for you. So you don't have to write 2,000 words a day. You don't have to write 200 words a day. If your writing habit means you write a paragraph every week, or a paragraph every day, or a couple of sentences, or whatever it is, even if it is writing 2,000 to 5,000, whatever words a day, it's just try and make sure that you prioritize it in your life, so that, and once you make it a habit, it's actually much easier to prioritize. You can be like, it's 5:30 on a Wednesday. This is my writing time for an hour. I'm going to do that. And that's helped me a lot. Because then my family knows as well, I'm going to do rice. And,
You also know that, like, don't call Therese during this time. She's going to be in her.
Unless you're bringing my charger, which my husband did now. So thank you for that.
I think that's a really good piece of advice for people here as well. And like I said before, everyone is going to be different, and don't put pressure on yourself, and don't expect yourself to do the same things that someone else might be doing. And it's all about writing is so personal by nature, and it's all about finding what's right for you. It's better to write often and something, rather than to force yourself to write every day, or to force yourself to write. And whilst that might work for some people, it doesn't have to work for everybody. And it's all about writing in the way that's best for you, but also making sure that it's enjoyable and that you're excited and it's fun and you get excited to return to your keyboard. And there might be some days where you're not excited, because everyone has those days, but making sure that it's something that is really fun and personal to you, because that's what writing is all about.
And I think if you think of it long term, I think a lot, and this is a mistake I fell into at the beginning, was to try and figure out everything right then. So that's what I wanted. I was like, I'm going to make sure I know everything. Now I'm going to sit down and write every day. I'm going to take all of this advice that sounds really scary, but I'm going to do it because that's how they said I'm making a successful career out of it. And once I stepped back, because that put me under a lot of pressure, and I felt my creativity take a dip because of it. But once I stepped back and just tried to see what is the process that works for me, and just kind of ask myself questions, and figure out what I love to write, and listen to how I wanted to write, so to figure out, okay, the morning is easier for me to write than the evenings. I'm more productive if I set a timer for myself, so that there's no social media, and that takes time. I've been doing this now, I think, for 6 years, and I'm still learning. And but because I see it as a long-term thing, this is something I want to do for the rest of my life. I try and be a lot easier on myself. I know it's easier said than done, but I really do try and take it easy and say, this is how this book is going to go. That's not a permanent thing for every book, and that it's not necessarily going to be this hard or this easy for every book, but to just get to know yourself, get to know your writing, and to get to understand that it's all a process, and it's a long-term journey.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, it's really important to remember that, it's a journey, and we really want to be there to help you make your career your own. That's what it's all about, is making the career that's right for you, and the writing career that's right for you. I think it's, that really important thing of not putting too much pressure on yourself, and just being doing what's right for you. So that is fantastic to hear. Moving on from writing advice that you've received to any writing advice that you might give to other people, what advice do you have for aspiring Mills and Boon authors who want to write a captivating first chapter that really kind of pulls us in, and we feel ourselves swooning from the first moment?
Make sure you get your love interests on the page as soon as possible. I think that's something I said earlier, but I really mean it, because that's going to be the thing that creates your tension. That's going to be the thing that creates your chemistry. And all of those things is what editors and readers want to see from the beginning. So do your characters have chemistry? Do do they think, does your reader think, or does your editor think that these characters are actually going to be able to work things out, or going to be able to sustain the relationship throughout that, or sustain the uncertainty and the entire conflict of what characters generally go through for the whole novel. And that's all set up in the first chapter. So that's what I would say, is try and make sure you get your love interests on the page as soon as possible, and then the tension and the chemistry and the conflict will grow from that.
Mm-hmm. No, I think that's a really, because at the end of the day, romance and love story, it's all about having those kind of sparks fly from the get-go, and just really feeling the power of your like couple and your main character's attraction and love for each other, even if they're maybe perhaps not quite ready to admit it at the start, but just really feeling the power of love and how kind of amazing and whiskey away it can be even in that first chapter.
Definitely, yeah.
So that is some fantastic advice. And moving on from advice to, again, a bit more about yourself, what is your favourite bit about writing for Mills and Boon and True Love?
So I'm a very emotional writer. Generally, my writing tends to lean more sort of high emotion and really dramatic feelings. And True Love is really about the rush of falling in love, all of that delicious uncertainty, but also that excitement, that spark you feel about when am I going to see the person next, and all that really amazing things that you feel when you're first falling in love. And so those two things generally go really well together. So I've been very lucky to find a home in True Love, because my voice really does suit what the line's looking for. And also, I really enjoy being dramatic, as you may have be able to tell. At least in my books, I actually don't like that much drama in my real life. But in my books, it's just so much complicated. I'd rather not have, my sexy housekeeper be a new man, a man I used to, have a date or whatever with. Like, how awful did that resist? So, and I think Mills and Boon is one of the unique spaces where you can actually explore your more dramatic tendencies. So,
No, definitely. And I think, like you were saying, there is something, especially in Mills and Boon True Love, and, that really opportunity to be really emotional and really dramatic. And I think there's something really like amazing and wonderful about being able to make people feel those things with the words that you're on a page, and kind of like, like that heady rush of like, when you see someone you like for the first time, or that feeling of when you're like, oh, maybe I love this person, and like being able to recreate those experiences.
And the first kiss and
the first
sort of
kiss,
all of
or just
beautiful.
Even something as simple as a touch. A touch can be so powerful.
Just the grazing of a hand can be amazing.
The grazing of a hand is a favorite.
Play with all of that. It's just it's delicious, and it's things you're gonna find in in your Mills and Boon novels.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so I just think that's one of the the power to make people feel that way is just incredible. And so we are very lucky that you get to make so many readers feel that way, and very thankful.
I hope I do. That's my goal.
It's like every time I read it, you can just hear me squealing in the corner because I get so excited by certain moments.
You're so sweet, Hannah. I'm gonna sort of take all of these compliments and play them back when I have all of my moments of uncertainty.
I can be your personal writing cheerleader.
Hannah will love this.
It's like, if ever in doubt, just give me a call. I can be a personal cheerleader. But thank you so much for sharing that. And finally, we would love to hear a bit more about your latest book. So I know we've heard a few bits and bobs about Awakened by the CEO's Kiss, your latest release. But what was the writing process like for Brooke and Tyler's story? And all importantly, why do you love it? Why are you so excited about this story?
I think we've kind of covered a lot of the plot. It's basically about these two people who are forced to work together, even though it's highly convenient for both of them. So Tyler's filling in for his sisters in her new job with Brooke, and Brooke's kind of so taken aback by this man who seems familiar and who she shares this connection with, but she can't figure out, because there's just no way that she would forget this man. So we deal with that, and obviously he's a housekeeper, and who doesn't want a sexy man cleaning their house, so, and cooking for them, and doing all these things that we don't necessarily want to do, but ta-da. So this is clearly, it was a dream of mine to, I mean, my husband does a lot of that, but unfortunately he's wearing his shirt most of the time, which Tyler kind of doesn't. So
Tyler goes a step further, which is good.
He knows what the readers want, so he does something topless. So what the writing process for this, I can't actually tell you about, because I was 8 months pregnant, I think, when I was writing this book, or when I was finishing it. And I just remember a lot of naps and a lot of snacks. But usually things are much, easier than that. I don't take as many naps when I'm writing a book. But I do remember sort of just really leading into the tension of it and the playing with sort of the memory of it, because he remembers her, but she doesn't remember him. And there are just so many layers that you can do with that. And then just enjoying the banter between them, because I love writing banter. You'll see that in all of my books, is just the back and forth between characters. That's one of the things that I love the most. So I think you're going to get a lot of that in this book. And yeah, I really loved it. So I hope you so I hope everyone will read it and will enjoy it as much as I enjoyed writing it.
Yeah, and as I said earlier, if anyone is really excited about the sound of this story, you can head on over to the Mills Boon website or your favorite online retailer. You can take a sneak peek and then purchase if it's something you're really excited about. But yeah, I think when you were talking about like that banter, and I think that's a really great way to put it, because like the banter is, it's learning who a person is, learning to learn the little things about a person. It's like a form of intimacy in a way, that banter, which is really great. So I think that's something really, really great to touch on there, because I think banter is what makes it come alive sometimes, and it's great seeing kind of the sparks fly. So it's wonderful to hear that that's something you really enjoy writing when you're writing away.
I think it's one of the fun things about writing, honestly. There's a lot of not fun things, like actually sitting down and writing. But once you get going and you can kind of work with the back and forth and the flirting and the sometimes insulting in fun, innocent way, it's really fun.
It's always like, it's that little back and forth and just little moments that really kind of bring stories to life, but also just bring couples' love for each other to life as well. That is so fantastic to hear about. But thank you so much for joining us today, Therese. It's just been a total pleasure to talk to you all about your writing, about your top tips. I know that viewers are going to find this so helpful. So thank you so much. And as I said,
thank you for having me.
No, it's our absolute pleasure. So thank you so much for joining us. And as I said earlier, this video will be making its way onto our YouTube channel, where Therese will be keeping an eye out for any questions from anybody. So don't be afraid. If you've got a burning question after this that you'd love to hear Therese's answer to, or if you want to do it on Twitter or another form of social media, then don't hesitate to, because we really just want to get everyone excited about writing and give you as much advice and top tips as we can.
And if anyone, sorry, I'm interrupting you, and if anyone wants to ask me anything on, I'm mostly on Twitter because it's just easier for me with my babies around. But if you want to ask me something on my Instagram, on Twitter, on Facebook, please do. I will do my best to answer it as soon as I can. But I'd be very happy to answer.
Thank you so much again, Therese, because I just know that this is such like a valuable resource for aspiring writers everywhere. So we really appreciate your time and your advice. It's just brilliant to have. But thank you so much again for joining us today. It's been such a pleasure to talk to you. So
it's fun. Thank you.
And we will leave everyone now. But hopefully we will all talk to you soon. And if you have any questions or want to know a bit more about the Love to Write competition, just head on over to the Mills Boon website. But thank you so much, everybody, and we will see you very soon. Bye.
Bye.